Whenever I discuss quitting shampoo on my channel, I'm always asked by many people whether quitting shampoo is going to help them to combat hair loss and grow a thicker head of hair. Now, I'm not sure about that, but in this video, I am going to discuss one factor that is very crucial for making sure that your hair is as thick as possible and that you're not losing your hair unnecessarily. Now, of course, there are many different factors that can affect hair loss, and a lot of it is often just purely genetic, and in that case, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no special supplement you can take that's going to fix your hair loss if it's simply down to your genes. But the last thing that you want is to have hair loss as a result of something entirely within your control. That being said, I'm sure many of the people who've clicked on this video are actually overlooking this factor. And if you are one of these people, then there's a good chance that your hair isn't as thick as it otherwise would be, and you are unnecessarily shedding hair. Now, the factor that I'm talking about here is diet, and specifically the mistake of not eating enough. Now, I'm going to break this down into 3 tiers: macronutrients, micronutrients, and overall calorie intake. Now, if you're not getting enough of any of these 3 aspects, then you are likely to be shedding hair unnecessarily and not enjoying as thick a head of hair as you otherwise could. Now, I've known about this for quite some time, but it really especially caught my attention recently when, due to some factors beyond my control, I wasn't able to eat properly for around a month. And during that time, my hair really started shedding. I just noticed that my apartment floor was looking like it was a barber shop. So this experience just really brought my attention to how crucial of a factor eating enough really is when it comes to hair loss. So the first aspect of eating enough that I'm going to discuss is the most straightforward. It's just simple calorie intake. Now, it's common nowadays for people to cut calories or do calorie restriction diets, but if you want to have the healthiest hair possible, then you need to be eating sufficient calories. Even if you're eating enough protein and you are getting enough micronutrients, which by the way is improbable if you're not eating enough calories, but even if you are, simply not having enough calories means that your body does not have the fuel that it needs to perform all of its functions to the optimal degree. Now, when this happens, your body has to pick some functions that are going to take a hit. And one of these could likely be hair regrowth. And so you'll find yourself shedding hair. Your body won't be able to supply nutrients to the hair follicles as efficiently, and you'll find your hairs falling out because, again, your body needs to keep the energy to your vital organs, but your hair is not going to be as much of a priority, so you may suffer the consequences. Now, during the period last month that I mentioned when I wasn't able to eat enough, I was often only eating 1 to 1,500 calories per day, which of course is nowhere near enough for an adult male. So there's no surprise really that I was shedding hair. Now, of course, calorie requirements differ massively between individuals and they vary across a multitude of different individual factors. Now, because of that, it's impossible, of course, for me to give some sort of suggestion on how many calories you should all be eating every day. But in general, I would just say if you want optimal hair health, then don't restrict your calories. I always eat until I'm satiated, and if I'm craving food, then I know my body needs calories, and so I make sure that I eat something. I just make sure that it's not junk food. So overall, even though calorie restriction diets are popular, especially for weight loss, if you do want to optimize your hair health, get off the calorie restriction diets and nourish yourself properly. So the second part of eating enough that's very important is getting sufficient macronutrients. Now, the 3 macronutrients are protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And starting with protein, it's of course very important that you meet your daily protein needs, and not eating enough protein is a surefire way to cause hair loss and have a thinner head of hair than you should. Now, the general rule of thumb for adults is that you should get 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. And if you're doing weight training and trying to build muscle, then you should get at least 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Another thing that should be noted, particularly if you're vegan or vegetarian, is that you need to pay attention to your actual amino acid intake as well as your overall protein intake. Rice, for example, has protein in a non-trivial quantity, but it's not a complete protein, meaning it doesn't have all of the essential amino acids. Now, it's common for vegans and vegetarians to understand that all whole plant foods have all of the essential amino acids. And this is technically true, but remember that different foods have the different amino acids in differing quantities. meaning that a food could technically contain all of the essential amino acids, but it might have some of them in very, very small amounts. And you have a daily requirement for all of the essential amino acids. There are apps like Cronometer you can plug in your daily eating into if you are concerned about this, and you can see your breakdown of all of the essential amino acids and your intake of them. But again, if you are vegan or vegetarian, don't fall for the meme that, oh, if I just eat whole plant foods in sufficient quantities, then I'm going to definitely get enough essential amino acids because they contain all of the essential amino acids. You might be eating foods that are very low in certain essential amino acids, and you might not be hitting your daily requirement. Eating enough fat is important for overall hormone health, and it's also important for getting enough essential fatty acids. Not to mention, many of the most important micronutrients for hair health are fat-soluble vitamins, like vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, and vitamin K. And so these actually require fat to be absorbed by the body. So not eating enough fat as well can also be problematic for maintaining a thick, healthy head of hair. Carbohydrates too shouldn't be neglected, since glucose is the preferred fuel for your body. And in general, I don't think that it's great to cut out any whole macronutrient group from your diet. So I would say for optimal hair, you shouldn't really be diminishing your intake of any of the major macronutrient groups. Now, whether or not you suffer hair loss on a low carb or a low fat diet is going to be largely linked to whether or not you're getting enough micronutrients and enough calories. If you are getting enough micronutrients and enough calories, then you may be fine on a low carb diet, for example. But if you are experiencing hair loss and you really want to make sure that it's not because you're just not eating enough nutrients, then it might be a good idea to experiment with eating carbs in your diet, since again, they are your body's preferred source of energy. Now, micronutrients are the last category I'm going to talk about. And if you're not eating enough food, then it is very likely that you won't get enough micronutrients. Some of the most important micronutrients for hair health are iron, zinc, vitamin E, vitamin D, and calcium. Now, if you're eating enough calories per day, then it's not a huge challenge to get enough of these nutrients, especially if you're eating a substantial amount of animal products. And if you're a vegan and you eat sufficient calories and you eat plenty of legumes, nuts, and seeds, then again, there's a good chance that you will hit your requirements if you are eating enough calories. But if you're skipping meals or calorie restricting or not putting effort into your meals and not eating a balanced diet, then there's a good chance that you won't hit your requirements for things like iron and zinc, and these can have drastic effects on your body's ability to grow hair. And there's a good chance that you will be shedding your hair if you're just not eating enough and not getting enough iron and zinc. Now, there's an interesting study here on people who were suffering from hair loss. They were split into two groups. One group was given a placebo, the other group was given a vitamin E supplement. Now, after the 8-month trial period, the group that had been given the vitamin E supplement had a 34.5% average increase in the number of hairs in the specific area of their head. The placebo group had a 0.1% decrease in the amount of hairs on their head. So this study does show that vitamin E can have a very profound effect on hair loss. And if you aren't getting enough vitamin E, which plenty of people won't be, then this could be a reason why you're losing hair. Sunflower seeds are among one of the best sources of vitamin E. So if you're worried about your vitamin E levels, just buy some sunflower seeds. They're pretty cheap, and eat about 50 grams a day and you'll be good to go. So the overall message of this video I want to stress is that it's very important to simply eat enough food. Don't skip your meals. Don't be lazy when it comes to food and expect your hair to be optimally healthy. Your hair is just another part of your body. And if you aren't nourishing yourself properly, then it's not going to be at its healthiest, and you may experience hair loss. I was finding my hair falling out when I wasn't eating properly for just a month. So just to recap, there are 3 main reasons for this. If you don't get enough calories, then you'll run into problems because your body won't have enough energy. You'll also be unlikely to be meeting all of your macronutrient requirements if you just don't eat enough food. And lastly, and probably most importantly, if you aren't eating enough, you won't get enough micronutrients. People nowadays eat a lot of non-nutritious food, and so the chances that you're missing essential nutrients that are vital for proper hair growth is very high if you are just being lazy with your food. So yeah, that's going to wrap up this video, but thank you for watching if you made it this far. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you've ever experienced hair loss as a result of improper eating.